Yes, bro, I am. Yeah, I do at Excel as well, bro. What ideology do you? That sounds boring, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the most interesting ones out there is nationalism is what I do. I think that's pretty interesting, and then I think anarchism would be interesting, but all the other ones like ecologism, multiculturalism, they all seem pretty boring. I mean, to be honest, all ideologies are boring, I can't lie, but yeah, essay plans is the vibe, man. It's just, yeah, I'm just also trying to predict what's going to come up as well. Yeah, I haven't really revised much of paper 2 to the extent of paper 1. I haven't really done much nationalism. Did some at school, but yeah. A/A star is what I want to get. Nothing less than an A, that's for sure. I feel like the A star could happen if the questions are nice. But last year's questions seemed really nice, so I don't know if they're going to do that this year. Right. Give us I'm not too stressed about paper 3. Wait, do you do USA or global? That's another thing, actually. Yeah, US as well. Yeah, I've no idea what US is like because we do global, but that doesn't seem too fun either, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not too worried for global because I'm quite like, I don't know, I haven't done too much revision on it, like, at all really, because some of it is quite trivial, like you just kind of know it if you're into international relations, but like some of it is like the environment and stuff is, I need to revise that, but I'm gonna leave that till half term somewhat. Like I'm gonna go over it before then obviously, but not like in a huge extent. Mine actually is paper 2. Okay, so it's the further one down. Yeah, paper 2 could be big actually. Yeah, what is US like? Is it difficult? Is it harder out of the other two papers or easier? Because it does seem quite like there's a lot to it. You know, I'm actually really glad the options that my school does, because everyone else in the UK seems to do US and like feminism or ecologism and stuff. So global is definitely the vibe. It's a great move from us. It's quite content heavy. It's dependent on the questions. I reckon it's... Oh really? Damn, that's peak. Yeah. I think global is it content heavy? It's not really content heavy. I feel like the other ones are more heavy. But there's definitely like bad topics in there. Like the stuff on human rights and environment is like that's a boring essay, like weird to write. But then writing stuff about like the UN or the World Trade Organization or NATO, EU, pretty chill. But yeah, because we study the EU as well. It's kind of like so we kind of do EU and global politics. It's kind of weird. Because like the EU is part of the global topic, but it's like got its whole like thing for itself. So I guess technically it should be more content, but I guess we don't go into the same depth that you guys go into the US as the EU. I've taken a gap year. You see, bro. so they haven't done freedom or individual.
application of modern liberal principles. I think we can really see this in the post-war period in the United Kingdom. And central to this is the Beveridge Report, which really laid the foundation for the modern welfare state. So as part of the 19th century, influenced by the Enlightenment and its focus on individualism and progress, and Locke was really key. So his ideas really challenged this kind of pre-existing society, which I described, focused on divine right and hierarchy, and contributed to these kind of significant changes over the next couple of centuries. He argued that in the state of nature, so prior to a state, there were natural societies in which individuals enjoyed natural rights and freedoms.
It's good, Aaron, man. How you doing, bro?
And in this context, this really shapes their view of the state, in which the state is presented as a threat to these freedoms and rights, and should therefore be limited to ensure freedom and individualism are maintained. So kind of real kind of emphasis, and you see this throughout liberalism, on the promotion of freedom and individualism as central to their ideology and their beliefs. So rather than being based on divine right, the state should be based on a social contract between the rulers and the ruled, with the latter having the right to remove those in power if they don't serve in their interests and they no longer consent to them being in power. Crucially, it is worth recognising, and we'll come into this when we look at some of the agreements and disagreements, that when Locke is talking about society and a social contract at this time, it's a very narrow view of what society was. So it excluded women, those who weren't white, and those who weren't wealthy. So it's effectively a small group of wealthy white men. So when he's talking about kind of freedom and individualism, that's really the kind of paradigm he's coming from. He's looking to promote effectively the freedom and individualism of people like himself, which kind of explains why some of his views, though he talks about government by consent, aren't as radical as like full democracy that you see coming later. Locke also, really important to his thought and kind of one of his other key texts, really focused on the promotion of religious tolerance, which is a very radical idea at the time, and this advocated for the separation of church and state and the freedom of individuals to practice their religion without government interference or coercion. Sorry, that should say practice there. So, and this led to the kind of foundational beliefs of liberalism, of classical liberalism, which were that individuals are rational and able to reason, which focused on promoting the freedom of individuals in order to allow them to pursue their goals and make progress. And as we kind of mentioned, the state is the key threat to this freedom, and as a result, there should be what's been described as a kind of night watchman state. So Locke didn't say this specifically, but it's a kind of type of state he advocated for, and it's called that because it should simply kind of adjudicate disputes when necessary, but otherwise just leave individuals free to pursue their lives. And in the economic sphere, and we'll look at this much later in the video, like in much more detail later in the video, Adam Smith was quite key in classical liberalism. So this is kind of key strand. This is the first strand we're looking at. It's described as classical liberalism in advocating for laissez-faire capitalism, so very minimal state intervention in the economy as well. And then also in this kind of early classical liberalism, you see Mary Wollstonecraft being a really key figure in effectively applying liberal principles. So she's very much a feminist, but kind of argued from a liberal perspective and argued that women are rational, women have reason, and therefore they should be afforded the same rights and freedoms that men are in society. And crucially argued that the treatment of women in society was against reason, and therefore argued for formal equality under the law. So women being granted the access to the vote, which they weren't at the time, and also same access to education as men were. And this is quickly having a look now at classical liberalism applied. So the American Revolution and state is a really useful way to understand how liberalism is applied to political practice. You don't need to bring this in loads into the essay at all. You can bring it in maybe in one sentence in the essay if you think it's useful and it works well. It shouldn't be like the basis of your essay. But I think it's useful to understand that liberal ideas and classical liberal ideas were central to the American Revolution and in how the American state was designed. And yeah, crucially, liberal ideas influenced the Glorious Revolution. It was really the American Revolution where they were really put into practice. So in terms of ideas that motivated the revolution, a lot of these key ideas were drawn from classical liberalism, from Locke. So ideas such as individual rights, representative government, and the rule of law, and that's why they really opposed the kind of British control over America. And the Declaration of Independence, if you read it, kind of really reflects this, and it's assertion of inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's a really liberal emphasis on individual freedom and self-determination. And then you see that in the design of the state. So the US Constitution, with its key system of checks and balances, separation of power, and the Bill of Rights, demonstrates this liberal commitment to limiting government power and protecting individual rights and liberties. And crucially, they were also driven by rejecting the arbitrary rule of the British and a desire for government based on the consent of the government, which were central tenets for liberal thought. And I suppose this also shows, in terms of what I was talking about earlier, in terms of when these classical liberals are writing, especially in these early classical liberals in this period, they're not writing for the whole of society. They're writing for a relatively small group of white men, and you very much see that. They're talking about the consent of the governed, but women don't have the vote, and of course, crucially, there's slavery for over 100 years after the American Revolution. So what we're going to have a quick look at now is then how classical liberalism developed in the late 18th and 19th century. And this is really important to understand because the 19th century brought big societal and political and economic changes that forced liberalism to evolve and to address new challenges and questions. So the Industrial Revolution dramatically transformed economies and societies, creating unprecedented levels of wealth, but also kind of a lot of social and economic inequality and really growing inequality. And also, in this area, you saw the rise of the working class, urbanization, the expansion of capitalist economies, real expansion of colonialism, and this really kind of this change in the economy related suggests that individuals could and should improve their individual social and economic conditions through hard work and perseverance. This was how effectively the individual acted and saw things. They sought to maximise their own pleasure and minimise their own pain. They thought it could also be a vision for how the state should act. And this provided a rationale for democratic governance, as it argued that governments elected by and accountable to the majority were more likely to enact policies that benefited the greatest number of citizens. But again, his kind of promotion of utilitarianism, especially in terms of its use by the state, also raised concerns among some liberals who were really worried about its potential implications for minority rights. So if you have a real emphasis on the greatest happiness for the greatest number and effectively on majority welfare as a consequence, that could lead to the interests of individuals and minorities being overlooked and overridden. Which really goes against some of these key classical liberals. And John Stuart Mill is one of these key figures in the period arguing against this idea. So we're worried about dangers of the tyranny of the middle. For Mill, education was really key to this. So you saw where it was really essential for helping the period, especially with continued development of capitalism, continued development of industrialization in Britain. Modern liberal thought began to evolve, with other thinkers going is the idea that effectively freedom is being left alone. By the state to do what you want. Whereas what you see with thinkers like T.H. Green and kind of challenges this. And effectively says that in the reality of an industrialized society under free market capitalism, individuals aren't wholly autonomous agents who can simply be left alone to be free. And he argued that true freedom, or true liberty, should be understood as more than just the absence of restraint. It should be encompass the capacity to fulfill one's potential. So if you're just left alone but you can't fulfill your potential because you're discriminated against in society, or crucially, especially with T.H. Green early articulated this idea, because you're poor in an unequal society, then you can't you can't be free effectively. That's not true freedom. And he therefore believed that the state had a moral obligation to create the conditions that would enable individuals to realise their potential, therefore kind of achieving true freedom. And that included advocating for education, healthcare, social safety nets, and really setting the stage for the development of the welfare state. And you really see that in the early 20th century now with the Liberal government and the People's Budget, which was really important. And you see it also in this period, the emergence of Keynesianism. So in the early 20th century, modern liberalism, so he argued that free market capitalist economies are prone to cycles of boom and bust, leading to periods of mass employment and economic instability, which obviously, again, this idea that prevents people from being from their true freedom and individualism. And he therefore advocated for active state intervention in managing economies, suggesting that government should regulate interest rates and increase public spending during economic downturns to stimulate demand and mitigate the effect of recessions. And this gained really significant traction, in particular in the US, with the FDR's response to the Great Depression, with the New Deal, which was kind of included large-scale government spending, programs on public work programs, financial reforms, and social security, which embodied these Keynesian principles. And that's kind of really saw a big shift in the role of the state in economic affairs. And then what we see in the mid to late 20th century is the kind of real full articulation of modern liberalism. So you see it beginning to develop in this period, but with in particular the thinkers of John Rawls and Betty Friedan, what you see is its real articulation in this period and the real shift away from classical liberalism. And in this period, it developed to include constitutional reform, to enhance democratic governance, social liberalism, to address kind of the issues of civil rights and social equality, and the practical application of these ideas in the establishment of the welfare state in the UK. View of a limited state intervention. And yeah, it was implemented after World War II with the establishment of the NHS, the expansion of the welfare state through various social security measures that ensured the safety net for the unemployed, elderly, and other vulnerable groups. So you see this shift in practice, war, societal prejudices, and structural inequalities. So you see a similar support for a greater role of the state in this regard, rather than just economically. And Betty Friedan was really important in articulating the challenges faced by women in her groundbreaking work, The Feminine Mystique, where she explained how women were restrained not only by a lack of formal equality, but also by pervasive social attitudes that undermined their rationality and autonomy. So these prejudices were perpetuated through cultural norms and practices which denied women true freedom and potential for self-realisation of freedoms fully. And by promoting state action to correct these imbalances, she and other social liberals sought to protect and enhance individuals' natural rights. The final quick thing I want to have a look at, and there's a reason it's quick, even though they're called liberalism and they can be seen as a liberal strand, then is neoliberalism. Crucially, not considered part of the liberalism part of the course by the EdXL exam board, so you don't need to mention them, and don't get yourself confused. Use neoliberalism as part of the new right in the conservatism and your conservatism answers. It's much better to just not bring them in to your liberalism answers. In a way, they're very, very consistent with classical liberalism anyway, so just bring in classical liberalism instead. And it's the key debate, or key kind of debate over agreement or disagreement is between classical and modern liberals in this exam course. But neoliberalism emerges in the late 20th century, and it's partly as a response to this modern liberalism. Essays. Okay, so what we're going to have a look at now is the real key part of the video, and we're going to look at the key principles and agreements of liberalism. So looking at individualism, freedom and liberty, state, rationalism, equality, social justice, and liberal democracy. These ones mentioned in the spec, as well as some others that I'm going to bring in to make sure we kind of cover all of the content. And within these kind of, when we look at these kind of key principles and agreements, we're also then going to look at the key disagreements and tensions between the strands in relation to these particular principles. Obviously, in some principles, there's going to be more tension compared to others. So in this key kind of bulk of this middle of the video, the key part, this is going to be all the kind of content, the real detail you need for the kind of explanation in the exam. So yeah, starting off, we're going to have a look at individualism. So individualism is a key principle of liberal thought, and it emphasises that the needs and rights of each individual person, are more important than those of any group. And that kind of links into what I was talking about at the start. This focus on the individual is central to liberalism. So there's not really a preference for individual over group needs, but a really deep philosophical stance that every person has inherent value and the right to self-determination, and the kind of promoting groups or other individuals over each individual is wrong, as it goes against these rights and goes against these fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. So they fundamentally believe that society and politics should therefore be structured to promote the autonomy and freedom and well-being of each individual, rather than primarily serving the interests of groups, whether defined by class, religion, or any other collective identity, which you see in a lot of other political ideologies. So empowering individuals is also seen as the most effective route to progress and justice in society. So they have the belief that when individuals are free to pursue their own paths, society as a whole benefits. And with its natural interest, doesn't harm others. And lead to significant. They champion policies that reduce government control over economic and personal life. It's help from the state, and therefore you just allow everyone to pursue their self-interest. So it kind of shifts the focus from simply protecting individual rights to actively creating conditions that enable all members of society to realise their potential, suggesting that personal growth and societal progress are interdependent. When individuals are supported in their development, society as a whole becomes more prosperous and harmonious. So they kind of have this shared view that actually if you respect individualism, it leads to societal prosperity. I suppose the developmental individualism and modern liberalism suggests that you can't just leave individuals alone to do this. Sometimes they need help in order to kind of truly kind of pursue their kind of self-interest and kind of give them the real capability to do so. And this, again, as with classical liberals, influences their view on the state. So they advocate for a more involved government that not only ensures basic rights and freedoms, but also takes active measures to level the playing field. Okay, so the key next kind of principle and agreement we're going to have a look at, and this is really central to liberalism, is freedom or liberty. And it's a key central concept in liberalism, holding that individuals should be left alone to think, speak, and act and make decisions based on their own interest and judgment, including their own view of human nature. So every individual should have the autonomy to live their life as they choose without undue interference from the state or other societal groups. So this links into individualism, as they argue that for freedom, not just to protect people from coercion or constraint, but to create an environment where people enjoy equal freedom and protection from under the duress states, their different views.
Um, yeah. So such a good idea, mate. Would highly recommend doing it. I literally did it today and yesterday. I'm thinking I need to go in on Monday because I left my water bottle at school, so I have to go in on Monday, and then Tuesday I don't think I'll go in, and Wednesday we do a maths paper at school, so I think I'll go in for that. But then Thursday, Friday, nah. Thursday, Friday I don't go in because I literally finished school in like a week and a half. Like it's pretty dumb. Like I've just been saying I'm ill, but like it's so bait. Like I'm conveniently ill on a Thursday and Friday for. It's only been 2 weeks in a row, but like I might cook up another excuse, like a interview or I don't know, or I might not just say anything, to be honest. I don't know. We'll see. That is so peak. You only get study when your half-time starts. That is crazy. I mean, for me it's a lot worse going to school because I have like 45-minute travel to and fro. So there's that, which is a lot of effort and like just time just traveling, and then in my lessons nothing productive happens. I'm not with all my resources, I'm not with my, room, my setup that I can work in, so it just makes sense to just stay at home. But yeah, I mean, it depends. If you work better at school, if you can find a possibility to work at school, then yeah. But I mean, people that I know, they go to school but then they skip the lesson, but like, you may as well just stay at home at that point. Because what happens in the lesson is just basically nothing. Literally, we'll be given some like practice sheet to do. Like I can stay at home for that. I can, there's so many benefits. But yeah, I mean, in your situation, that's a long time to just tell the school I'm not coming in. But yeah, I would really try to not go in if I were you, for anyone. Unless you work better at school for some reason. So, it's all relative to what you. There's nothing really. It's a pretty broad question. I mean, I made a video a week ago about how to revise for them. So you can give that a watch, I guess. I do, but I haven't been recently because of revising. Like I do a workout at home instead. I did some cardio just before the stream. I was doing some skipping. Trying to get good at skipping. To, you know, do all the like cool shit with it and stuff. That's fine. See, that's a sticky one because, you know, you need to do some kind of exercise every day, but a whole gym session can technically be quite distracting. Like a lot of the people that are dedicated to what their craft and what they're doing, when they go into like a serious mode, they forget about everything like that. Like they'll still maybe like go outside for a walk, but they won't. Like you gotta have a priority, right? So like for me, as much as I'd like to bulk up, I'm setting that back because by my diet, my keto diet, not having any carbs or minimal carbs. So I'm having to make sacrifices like that, and you know, not going to the gym to get the full use of the equipment is also another sacrifice. Like I'm not going to get the same gains, of course, but it's not my priority at the moment. So it really depends on the extent to which you want to pursue your grades and stuff like that, and you know how you want to split your time and like energy resources, if that makes sense. Where is it? This is nationalism, this is socialism, where's liberalism? It's just despawn. Nope. I've written essays before mentioning where I went wrong. This Yeah, I know. It's not that deep. Plus, it's the summer anyway. I don't need to bulk, but like, I've never properly bulked ever. In fact, it's just impossible for me to bulk. Well, it's just really difficult. But it's summer anyway, so I need to be nice and lean anyway, which I'm basically at. So it's all good. Where is it, bro? This is so annoying. Found it. Ugh. My room always gets messy when I do politics. There's so much paper and bullshit everywhere. could get an example essay. I'm glad to hear that, man. Have a bit of motivation. That's not true. TH3 does not agree with negative freedom. Oh shit, bro. Sorry to hear that. Well, at least you know what you've gone wrong, hopefully. And just practice the hell out of those topics. 100%. actually decent points here. It's just all the same points, which is good. Liberalism is so chill, man. It's pretty like clear what the general consensus between the strands is. Like you've got classical liberals who believe in, you know, proper freedom for the individual and negative freedom, which limited state. But then modern liberals is more an enabling state to give individuals the possibility of achieving freedom because of a different view in how inherently, not intrinsically, not everyone has the same right to freedom as a result of their socioeconomic background, and therefore they advocate for a state to make the ground fair for everyone to reach that state of freedom. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Conservatism, on the other hand, is flipping all over the place. There's way too many strands. But this, hopefully, an essay comes up on this. Can't lie. Gonna have to really hope to God that comes true. But yeah, that was good. I'm gonna end the stream here, and yeah, see you guys tomorrow.